Hello, welcome to Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell. It's an Inside the Birds presentation. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan, and joining us every week to break down the tape of the Eagles game is Greg Cosell. I called it an Eagles game, Greg. It was a 34-6 destruction of the Cowboys at AT&T Stadium. You had a different description for this that you shared with our Patreon members. Not a game, but
It was a little more like watching a scrimmage to me I mean, there were a couple of nice Cowboys runs, and other than that, I felt like I was watching a scrimmage. Now, granted, their defense made a couple of plays, obviously, but as the game progressed, it didn't have the feel, so people understand as I watch most of the league, it's not like I'm just watching the Eagles games on tape, and it just didn't have the feel of one of those, week 10 NFL games.
no, it certainly did not. It certainly didn't have the feel of Eagles Cowboys that we
No,
normally
no, that it
expect.
certainly didn't.
But the Eagles did win there for the first time since 2017. And then they come home Thursday night. We'll get into maybe a little bit in this episode to face the Commanders in what will be a game that will decide who has first place by the end of Thursday night in the NFC East. So even though we know it was a lousy watch and, the Cowboys are really just, like you said, sort of a JV team in a scrimmage, what was your bigger takeaways, big picture from that game that you could feel good about? All right, next question. No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
no, to me, look, I mean, some individuals played really well. I didn't feel like overall this was a game where you came away going, man, the Eagles, this was just an unbelievably great performance, despite the score. And, and that's a sign of a good team, quite frankly, which the Eagles have certainly developed into. So, because you know what? You have to win, you have to beat who's on your schedule. Look, when the season started, everybody believed Jacksonville would be a really good team or a contending team. Everybody certainly believed Dallas would be a contending type team. Um, so, it's worked out really well, but at the end of the day, you still have to go play those games.
Right.
And the Eagles were able, after a somewhat of a, I don't want to say sluggish, that's too strong, but a slower start. I mean, they didn't pull away quickly, but then they just sort of started to pull away as the game progressed. That's why I wouldn't say it was an oh my God dominating performance. It was a workmanlike performance against a team that just wasn't very good.
And Greg, you told us last week that Mike McCarthy's not a guy who's going to bring a lot of bells and whistles out.
No.
He runs a West Coast offense, and Geoff and I were talking about. We thought like sometimes you got to go out of your comfort zone because you don't have enough talent. They've got so many guys hurt, and
I know.
unfortunately, it was a rough watch, as you like to say.
It was. I mean, yeah, it was. But like I said, Geoff, I mean, the Eagles, they were fine, and it's not a negative. What I'm saying, it just wasn't like, oh my God, wow, this was just a brilliant performance from top to bottom.
Right. And everybody, I'm sure, who watches the show understands we're all journalists. I mean, the fans, this is the greatest thing ever. You get to beat the Cowboys by
Right,
30 some odd
right,
points in their house. Jerry Jones gets mad. All that stuff is great, but that's sort
right.
of side plot to the actual tape, which we get into in this show. So why don't we start off with the offense, Greg? And Eagles obviously score a lot of points. It was not easy right from the start. We saw some sacks, we saw some turnovers. I kind of have a feeling as we talk about the pass offense, we're gonna talk about Jalen Hurts as an enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a guy who can just put a Batman cape on a bad play, make it a good play,
At
and
any
all of it in
time, at
between.
any time, and that's the thing, and that's why they're a very difficult team to defend because
Mhm.
there's any given play where Jalen Hurts can be great.
Right. Some of the plays that were off structure that he made were sometimes off structure because he didn't follow the structure itself. And I always
Correct.
wonder when you talk to coaches, right, who have these kind of players, and Jalen's not the only one. I mean, we've talked about other quarterbacks, and Josh Allen can be this way where you're making something good happen because you didn't make the right play happen at first. How do coaches and when you
That's a
watch it, how does that reconciled?
That's, you know what? We talk about that all the time. I work with a guy named Kevin Foley, who was actually a big time quarterback in South Jersey, Cherry Hill East, big time recruit. Had Mac Brown, Steve Spurrier in his house, ended up going to Maryland. He's worked with me for years. We're really close friends. And he was coached by Clyde Christensen, who coached Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. So, I mean, we're dealing with a guy that knows the quarterback position. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time because we all sit, in the matchup room and watch our tape. And I'd love to know the answer to that. Sometimes I'll ask coaches at the combine, and normally they tell me, we tell them it's a good play, because I think what you don't want to, let's put it this way, it's probably a really fine line. Maybe because, we're not dealing with college coaches yelling at kids, at 18-year-old kids. We're dealing with grown men, so you're not going to yell at anybody, So you might say, hey, just remember, hey, next time we call that play, you had AJ, on the shallow. Just keep that in mind. My guess is that's probably the way they talk about it. They're not going to say, "Oh my God, what do you do?" You're not going to talk about it like that.
Right.
So
Didn't you told us?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I remember you telling us that you would talk to the Seahawk coaches
Oh,
about
Dave Canales years ago.
Tell that story. Tell that
Receiver
story.
coach. Great story. When he was the wide receiver coach for the Seahawks. This is before the pandemic, so it's years ago. And I met him and I said, Coach, I said, we just met, but he knew who I was. I said, can I ask you a question? I'm not trying to, if you can't answer it or you don't want to, totally understand it. But I said, I watched the tape, as you probably know, and, there are so many plays where Russell Wilson, the design of the play works. Russell Wilson doesn't throw the ball. You guys spend time designing all this stuff. And then it's 3rd and 10 and he runs for 13 yards. I said, I'm just curious, how do you handle that in the meetings? What do you say? And he said, we say, good play, Russell. I mean, because I think the feeling is with guys who can make plays like that, you don't want to make them feel like they can't play like that.
Right. Right.
There's a lot of quarterbacks in this league who Mahomes is one, Josh Allen's one, who sometimes miss things, but then they make those plays. You don't want to take that over, and Jalen falls into that stylistic category.
Stuff.
So yeah, I think the big question we're all going to talk about as the schedule gets a little tougher, and then as the Eagles get into the playoffs and we see what they do there offensively is that a great style for beating average to bad teams and winning a lot of games? Can it function? Hey, listen, Russell Wilson, to your point, went to two Super Bowls and he won one of them. But his decline came very quickly as well because of it. And also he had a great 53 around him and a great defense. And so if that's the case, then we're talking about a quarterback who's good but has to have a great environment around him, which is fine because the Eagles can provide it.
Which, by the way, most quarterbacks do.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, and we'll get into it in a sec, but I love these conversations. I love talking to you guys, and I love these conversations. The Chiefs this year have scored only 23 offensive touchdowns, okay? Now, they have the best 3rd down conversion in the league, the best time of possession, but they don't score touchdowns. The Ravens have scored 39 touchdowns.
Yep.
The Bills have scored 32 touchdowns. The Chiefs have scored 23, okay? So their defense is arguably the best in the league, okay? They have a run game now that's extremely viable. No one is saying, well, Patrick Mahomes isn't any good. That's not the point. But normally, if you're talking about being great, like playoffs and all that, you've got to have team. And the Eagles actually have team. So sometimes a quarterback can be inconsistent. They all are at times, but your team can pick you up. And then your quarterback can make a play or two, and that's what works. And Jalen can be that kind of guy. Jalen can be very inconsistent and then make great plays in critical moments. I mean, which, by the way, is not a knock on Jalen Hurts. And people take it that way, and they totally miss the point if they think that's a knock.
Right.
Greg, right before we get started, I do want to ask you about Zimmer and all the stuff, the double mug, he's the king of that, and everything they did
that a
last
bit,
week.
yeah.
How do you think the Eagles O-line and Hurts handled everything they threw at him last week?
Pretty well. I mean, there were a couple. I mean, obviously that that sack where Gainwell missed the block. I mean, it wasn't as if they got beat by the scheme. Gainwell just missed a block. That was the overshown sack on 2nd and 20 on their first possession. That was a double mug look. They did a bunch of double mug. They didn't really pressure from it. They show teams, Adam, just to make this point, because more teams, do it, and we'll see more teams as we go down the road of the season. A lot of teams do it to keep the back into protection. That's the reason defenses do it, because there's only two ways really to block the double mug look. Okay.
Explain the double mug real quick if you can.
Double mug means that you put two players, not defensive linemen. Okay. Two players. It's usually two linebackers, or if you're playing dime, it would be a linebacker and a safety on each side of the offensive center in each A gap. Okay. So it becomes a 6-man front. Okay. Because they're on the ball on each side of the center in the A gaps. Double mug. That's the name that, everybody associates with it. So now there's really only two ways to block it, and the back has to be involved in both ways. You either block it by totally sliding your line, in which case the offensive linemen are responsible for both of the double muggers, and the back would then be responsible for a defensive end, or you block it where the center is responsible for one of the double muggers, and the back steps up and takes the other one. Those are really the only two ways to block it. So a lot of defenses show the double mug front to make sure that the running back has to stay in protection. And what you see a lot of teams even do to make sure it happens is what we call the creep alignment, where they actually move the back closer to the line of scrimmage so that he's further removed from the quarterback in the gun, and the quarterback, isn't squeezed by the pressure. Even if the back does a great job blocking, it's too close to the quarterback. So they move the back up into a creep alignment. But it's done a lot just to make sure the running back is not a primary receiver, and you only then are sending out 4 eligibles.
Greg, Jalen Hurts said something really interesting in his press conference. He was asked about the touchdown he threw to Goddard where there was a free rusher. He avoided the free rusher and was able to hit Goddard. And he was asked, when you have a free rusher like that, most quarterbacks immediately think, oh, got to hit my, there's a free guy coming at me, got to hit my hot route. Why didn't he think that way? And he basically, he was asked, he had a nice back and forth with the reporter. And at the end, he said, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about having a plan. And I thought that was a really interesting answer that sort of encapsulates what we're talking about here, whether the play is on structure or off structure.
It's funny you say that, because they were in an empty formation, and any quarterback in an empty formation has to be on the alert for pressure, because you can pressure a quarterback when he's in empty, because you can bring someone that they can't block. So you can pressure a quarterback. So if you're going to be in an empty set, and Jalen obviously was well aware of this, he was in empty. He was well aware that somebody could be coming, and somebody came and they couldn't block him, and that was overshown.
All right. So interesting thought, though. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about having a plan.
And I'm sure that was, that's the way it worked on that play,
Right.
And of course, he has the ability to do that. Some quarterbacks don't have that ability.
Correct. Now let's take a look at the last play of the first quarter. This is going to be a 30-yard pass to AJ Brown. And this kind of illustrates what we're talking about as far as sort of an on-structure play that can be made that he makes into an off-structure play and makes it not the way it's designed. You want to set up what you see?
I guarantee they said, great play, Jalen.
Yeah, what would they have said, though, if he didn't make the play?
Well, here, I'll walk you through it. And in my notes, I said this is in many ways, at times, a microcosm of Hurts. Because what they ran here, a great concept. They ran a 4 strong. 4 strong means there's 4 receivers to one side of the field. They're going to run a 4 strong concept to the boundary. The 3 receivers that are there, and then they're going to bring A.J. Brown, who's the single receiver at the top of the screen, on a shallow crosser. So they're going to run a 4 strong concept. You see that more and more in the league now, because it's an outstanding way to attack 2 shell zone coverage.
You talk about that in the matchup show all the time, by the way. I noticed that.
Yeah, 49ers love to run that.
Yeah, well, that's because it's becoming so prevalent, Adam. So we, that more and
more.
Because it's a reaction to the fact that there's been a proliferation of 2 shell coverage, zone coverage, because you don't have enough bodies to play 4 strong.
And look at what they're running. Okay.
Right. So if you want to run this, Geoff, and you'll see how it plays out. They put motion, and then there's the back. You can see, stop it now. You see it's four strong? Okay.
Hmm.
They can't cover this. Look at A.J. Brown right there. You see him right on the 40-yard line?
Mm-hmm.
Jalen is looking to the other side of the field. I can't explain why, because this play is four strong. That's the design of the play.
Hmm.
Okay. So I don't know why this ball should have been thrown to A.J.
Right.
Brown. And, he's wide open. The defender closest has his back. I mean, this
He's
is
even looking at him. He finally look. It looks here like he's finally sort of looking at him.
Yeah. So I can't tell you what's in Jalen's head, but this is the design of the play. That's where the ball should have gone. Okay.
Right.
And by the way, it was first down. So it's not like you didn't want to throw it to him because, oh my God, it's 3rd and 12 and he's not at the first down marker. It's
Hmm.
first down.
Hmm.
So that's the play. So
Yep.
what happens? He's looking left. He runs out of the pocket to his left. Brown, as he's wont to do, is so good at, he just mirrors Jalen and then he throws it to him in an open void and it becomes a 30-yard gain and Overshown runs him down. So that play was a beautifully called and designed play to attack an anticipated two shell zone coverage. That coverage has become so prevalent in the league. And four strong, where you send four receivers to one side, you don't have enough bodies on defense to cover that. And that was why they called the play, and it's first down. And Brown came from the other side on a shallow crosser. He settled right into his own void. There was no one there. That's the design of the play. And I can't tell you why Jalen was looking to the other side. In fact, in my notes, I just did why. I don't know. But, then he leaves the pocket to his left where there's no receivers, basically. And then Brown does such a great job of mirroring him and getting into a void, and it becomes a 30-yard play. And as I said, in many ways, we've seen that, over the years, it's kind of a microcosm at times of Jalen, where he leaves the structure of the play on the field and then makes it a quote unquote better play. But,
Right.
and we discussed earlier, when I was talking about Russell Wilson and Dave Canales, my guess is they probably just gently say, hey, if we call that again and get it, just be aware. But they're not going to say you did a bad job. It's grown men. They're not going to tell them you did a bad job when they gain 30 yards. They'll just
Right.
generally get the point across that, hey, just be aware.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Also, I want you to just describe, because I know people had some questions about it. The Trayvon Diggs interception. We talked
Ah,
about this with the Patreon folks, and I think we all agree. I felt the same way you did, so I'm glad to hear you say that. That was
Yeah.
more of a defense making a good play than an offensive player making a bad play. Not that
yeah,
it couldn't have been avoided, but it was just an excellent play by the
it
defense.
was a great it was a great play by Diggs, but they ran a concept that we used to see for years with the Patriots. It's basically YY vertical. It's two tight ends to one side, and they both run vertical routes. Calcaterra ran the outside vertical. It's a great way to attack cover three, by the way. Calcaterra, which the Cowboys were in, Calcaterra ran the outside vertical, and Goddard ran the seam. So it's YY vertical. And because of the outside vertical and cover three, Jalen is clearly anticipating that Diggs will play his deep third responsibility and expand with Calcaterra. That's the coverage. It's cover three. He's responsible for the deep third. But Diggs, for whatever reason, maybe he just had a sense, a feel. He's that kind of player. He's a really intuitive player, Trayvon Diggs.
Is he a
Right.
cluer? I know you've used that term
Yeah,
before.
yeah, he's a cluer and a keyer, but I think this was more of an instinct and a feel.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so what happened is Jalen, I'm sure, again, I can't speak for Jalen, but my guess is he saw him initially start to expand with Calcaterra, and then he figured, I got the seam clean to Goddard, and he threw the seam. And Diggs made an unbelievable reaction and an unbelievable play. Don't forget, he stretched out to catch it. It's not like Jalen hit him in the chest.
Hmm.
So, even though you never want a red zone interception, guys, as we all agree, I thought that was just a terrific play by a player whose strength is just his feel and his instincts and how he sees things and reacts. In some ways, for Eagles fans from, days gone by, a lot like Asante Samuel used to play, like just a feel for the position. It's just saw things, felt things, you know, and Diggs just made a great play. That was hard for me to put on Jalen.
Got it. All right. In the second quarter, Greg, there were back-to-back sacks of Jalen Hurts by Demarion Overshone, and then Micah Parsons. So I want to bring you in and have you look at it and
Oh
sort
yeah.
of diagnose
Yeah.
what went on there
Yeah.
as we
This was Overshown's second sack. This was 2nd and 9 in the second quarter, right?
correct. The first one was on, as you mentioned already, was on Gainwell, right?
Yeah,
That
that
was
was
just
on game.
bad.
That was blatant. The game will just miss the block. That happens.
All right. So why don't we describe what we see here that's going to lead to the sack? Obviously, they're an empty again, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, again,
the
I
rules.
don't know how he's coached here. I'm just giving him my opinion here. So this was a classic case where they're an empty and they're going to run 3 receivers to the boundary. And Goddard is going to run kind of a corner route, sail route, whatever term they want to use.
Hmm.
And because of the nature of this coverage, they're actually having Kendricks um, come from inside and try to match Goddard's route. Okay. So
Hmm.
if you want to run this, Geoff. So you see, so now keep going a little
Okay.
further. Stop it right here. Okay,
Hmm.
right now. The reason I said stop it here is because look at the corner up top, and that's probably Diggs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Diggs.
Maybe he got spooked by Diggs. I don't know. But Gibbs totally turned his body to the sideline.
Hmm.
And Kendricks is coming from inside the formation and trying to run with Goddard on a, like I said, a corner sail. They might
Hmm.
have another name for it. Everybody has different names. But, to me, given that this is the side he's reading, he is reading the trip side out of this
Hmm.
empty formation. I think this throw is part of the progression. That's the side he's reading. I think you got to
Right.
make this throw.
Right. I do agree. He might have been, just seeing Diggs
Might have
was
been. Now it's too late. I mean,
right.
once you get there, it's too late.
Right.
But
And
so
then
again,
you have
I
the
don't want to see.
linebackers back to you, right? The rules are if the linebacker's back is to you,
Yeah,
you
and
throw it
as
to.
soon as
Yeah.
and like I said, as soon as Diggs turns his body,
No.
because don't forget, you're leading him up the field. You're not throwing this like it's an out route. You're leading him up the field
Right. Right. So then I did a bad job of splicing this, but he runs around in the pocket
and get
and then
sacked.
gets sacked. So
Eh,
let's take a look at it from the other vantage point because this is you see 50 up in the A gap there
Right.
at
That
first. He's
that's
going to be
Kendricks.
wind up running with Goddard, correct?
Yeah, that's Kendricks.
Yep, that's Kendricks. So this
So
winds up
now,
being
by the
just a
way, as soon
four-man.
as I see, now his eyes go all the way to the outside. So again, I don't know what he's taught on this particular play, but
Uh-huh.
as soon as I see this, assuming he sees it, and I have to believe he saw it, I'm thinking Goddard. So what do
Right.
I want to do? Like you see quarterbacks do this all the time. It's fine now to look outside because the only guy who can make a play on Goddard is Diggs. So
Hmm.
so now you just want to try to do something to hold Diggs down. Maybe you pump, you do something because Kendricks ain't playing this. I
Right.
mean, that's just the reality
Baxter.
of life. Kendricks is
Yeah.
not going to play this
Yeah.
throw.
Yeah. Nope. He looks the other way. How I don't think this protection was bad against a
It's
five-man
pretty
rush.
good, actually.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, Cam, see, I like the way Zimmer drew this up to make 97 have to get isolated against Jurgens, and he gets the pocket push there certainly.
right,
But yeah,
right.
and
Well, at
then
that point,
then you're
everything's
asking
too
him to
late.
hold on to the
Yeah, I
ball.
mean he has time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he has enough time.
See, this is when I watch this tape, and with all quarterbacks, I always think, okay, how are they coached? But
Hmm.
you know, when I kept looking at that play over and over again, I just felt like, you know what? You're reading to trips. Goddard's route is part of the trips group. That's a throw you got to make.
Greg, I mean, guys, when you saw at the end there, Geoff froze it, his feet or widen, the play's dead. There's
Well, then the
nothing
play's
he can
dead. Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's the problem. You don't want to get to that point.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, and then the
Then
next, go ahead. Go ahead.
then you're going to the next sack.
Yeah, the next sack was, I believe, Micah Parsons. It was on the very next play, if I'm not mistaken. So this
This is
is the
third and
next.
17. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is the
This
next play,
one,
Greg.
again, this might be a personal pet peeve of mine, but I've
Hmm.
talked to, coaches about this. To me, okay, you can run this. And because what they're going to do is they're going to expand and go to cover two, okay?
Hmm.
And the safety is going to expand really wide. Now, personally, And I think a lot of quarterbacks would make this throw. I think there's two options here, okay? The first option is Smith screaming down the seam. That's Kendricks again. Now, I know it appears as if, gee, he's not in bad position, but he's
Hmm.
busting his hump with his back turn, and the safeties are so wide. This is a throw that a lot of quarterbacks would make. But even if you don't make this throw,
Hmm.
you gotta throw it to Calcaterra.
Calcaterra right here
You
at the
know,
I'm
top.
breaking you.
Yeah.
because even if he doesn't get 17 yards, maybe he gets enough to put you in field goal range.
I mean,
Just so you know, I have no idea. No one knows because we know that sunlight was an issue. We don't know which plays were a problem. Like,
Right.
there's
So
no way to know
that
that.
could be another
right,
factor. Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just want to mention.
Yeah, I was wondering about the Devontae Smith. I mean,
Well,
there's,
the thing is, you can see Smith really busting it because he sees that it's Kendricks who's
yeah.
a whole defender, and he's thinking, I could get this ball.
Well, it's funny. Jalen loves throwing the deep ball. He probably would have. I just feel like knowing the way Jalen is and how aggressive he is.
Right. So I'm
If
not
he,
going to say that, oh,
yeah,
Jalen blew this one,
yeah,
but
Uh,
you
yeah.
got to throw it to Calcaterra.
He's
Gotta hit
wide open.
Calcaterra.
Yep, and he
Yeah.
never really
That's the
sees him.
check down here. You got to
Yep,
throw it to him.
it's the
You know?
hot. Yeah, it's a hot. Yeah.
And
And you
by the
know
way,
what?
he
I
might have
think if
gotten a
he,
first down given what you see up top.
I was
You
just
know,
about to say, I think he might have a chance to get the first down here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Oh, he
yeah.
probably does get the first down because the corner, that's Carson. The corner is he's got his back totally turned and
Yep.
running. So running with Dotson.
Well, the only thing is that the linebacker here at the
Maybe.
48, if he sees that Jalen's not even looking at him, then
Maybe.
he's worried. He's probably sort of spying at the same time, just in case Jalen runs.
But I'll tell you what, even if he doesn't get the first down, but gets,
Oh, 4th and 3, you're going for it, right?
maybe you're going for it, or maybe you go for the field goal with Elliott, who's got a big leg. Either way, that can't be a sack. That's the bottom line.
There you go. All right. Let's transition, Greg, to the defense because I don't even know what to say because the Cowboys' offense is so bad. But I mean, what did you notice about Vic Fangio and what he was doing from either a coverage standpoint, man, zone, blitz, not blitz? What was his preferred?
Yeah, they continued to play like they did the week prior, a higher percentage of single high safety coverage, cover one, cover three. They were more foundations than two high structures. So again, we don't know if that's team based, opponent based, or if they're going to move in this direction. That's what we don't know.
Right.
Got to ask you, Greg, about Zack Baun. Everybody's asking us. We've talked about the contract. Let's put that to the side. But from a visual standpoint, what is this guy bringing every week? It seems to get better and better and better.
Yeah, he's playing really good football, Adam. Really good football. I think he's been terrific against the run for a guy that was never a stacked backer at any point in his college or NFL career. He's really showing higher level key and diagnose traits. His downhill trigger is really quick. He hits gaps in the run game. He plays with aggression. He plays with velocity. They use him as a rusher in their four-man sim zone exchange pressures. Every once in a while, they line him up outside to rush the quarterback out there. We saw last week when we did this, the play he made on the first play against Jacksonville when within the context of what they want their linebackers to do in coverage, he dropped, it must have been what, 18, 20 yards and made a play getting underneath an intermediate out route by Evan Ingram. So he's playing really, really good football. He's been a complete linebacker for them.
All right, let me ask you a question. And we're not getting into rankings, just based on your tape study of linebackers this season. You don't have to bring up any team. Just overall, getting a feeling as you watch tape, has he been one of the better off the ball linebackers you've seen on
Yes.
tape of all of them?
Yes. Because he's been multidimensional and complete in the way he's playing the game. So again, I can't think of everybody, and he's
Yeah.
certainly not Fred Warner, I can't think of, I love Frankie Louvu, who's probably a more dynamic player than Baun. I haven't seen the Saints enough to make it, but 2, 3 years ago, Demario Davis absolutely fit into that category of being a totally complete
But
player.
we're just talking about tape this season
Right.
when you go
This
week to
season,
week.
Baun is he's just a really good football player. I
He's
mean,
been
like I said, yeah,
consistent.
he's doing the thing is in the Vic Fangio scheme, even though they're playing a lot more single high in recent weeks,
Mhm.
foundationally, it's a two high structure scheme. And because they do not want their safeties to have to play up in the two high structure. They don't want safeties to lose the deep part of the coverage. Linebackers are critical in coverage in the Vic Fangio scheme, and Baun has been really good in that regard as
And
well.
Greg, it's so funny you say this because in training camp, Andrew DeCecco and I were like, man, they're going to have problems covering tight ends this season because we thought they were getting killed in training camp. I don't have the
They
numbers in front
were.
of me.
They just learned. They
Right.
were getting killed. I
Now,
mean,
now I know they haven't faced the who's who. They did face Evan Ingram. Gesicki got him. They have to face the Ravens guys, but I'm just a little surprised. Dean he hadn't been that bad at against
No,
coverage,
he's getting better. He's been
right?
better.
And Zack Baun has been basically their best defensive player. That's saying a lot because Carter's been terrific, off and on,
And
but more terrific than not.
DeJean was it weeks? I made a note of this. Hold on.
Okay.
his first
DeJean
start,
became the slot corner since week
Browns.
5. And by the way, here's an interesting fact. Since week
Yeah.
5, the Eagles have played 87% of their defensive snaps in nickel, the second highest percentage in the NFL behind the Texans. So DeJean has changed their whole defense.
Absolutely. Speaking of the back end, Greg, did anybody jump out again? We know that this is not a great Dallas offense, and they didn't throw the ball very much down the field. But anybody jump out in the secondary?
I remember Mitchell made a really good play on a vertical throw. I forget who. I'm trying to remember who that ball was thrown to.
I know it was the guy who I didn't even know they had. He had his last name was
It was Brooks, Jalen Brooks.
Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Jalen Brooks. Yeah, so Jalen Brooks. It was 3rd and 4 on the second possession. It was a sim pressure with
Mhm.
Dean was the 4th rusher. Baun was actually on the ball on the edge in a 5-man front look, but Baun and Smith dropped into coverage. Mitchell had an outstanding man-to-man coverage on Brooks' vertical route. Mitchell's playing really well too, in my opinion.
Awesome. All right, good stuff. And then
And I
obviously
love
those guys are
Blankenship
good
too. Every week he just plays downhill with aggression, with physical competitiveness. He's in his own way, he's a tempo setter in the secondary.
Interesting.
Definitely.
Okay.
So let's talk about the front four, Greg, a little bit. And there's one kid in particular who's getting a little bit of playing time here named Jalyx Hunt.
Yeah,
And he's
there he
starting to do a few things. And I know that you liked one of his rushes that we're going to take a look at now.
And the reason I liked it, Geoff, is because for people who don't know about his background, he went to Cornell and he was a safety, and he probably, my guess is he probably weighed 215 or 220 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then he transferred, was it Houston Ochita or what was it?
Christian.
Well,
Yeah, it
Houston,
was Houston Baptist, now it's Houston Christian, right, Jeff?
right.
Yes, it was Houston Baptist, now Houston Christian.
And he became basically a linebacker, and he's a phenomenal athlete. And I
Yeah.
really liked watching his tape. Obviously, he wasn't playing against, Power 5 competition. But I guarantee, and Adam, you would know this, I guarantee that there were many people in the league that loved this kid, but
Mm-hmm.
draft this kid in the first round simply because, or even top 50 because of who he played against, because you just don't know. But if you're just looking at physical athletic traits, this kid's got it all. So I was really happy to see him get meaningful snaps. And this particular play you're going to show, Geoff, that we're
Mhm.
going to look at, this is the kind of thing you want to see because we know he's a great athlete. But in order to be an edge pass rusher, we've had this conversation about Nolan Smith. In order to be an edge pass rusher, you've got to be able to show some short area strength and power, speed to power. Now, again, this is not a play where he just, throws back Terrence Steele. Steele, weighs 320, but he does move him. And
Right.
if you run this, you can see that he moves him. And that's what, I was looking for. And I was really happy to see. So you can see he's pushing him back.
Yeah, that's a bull rush. That's a
That's a
straight
bull
bull.
rush. He
Yep.
can't. Steele's having a hard time, setting his house and anchoring here. And then he's able to get his hand on the throw.
I like that athleticism, by the way, to be able to kind of also get off your feet after
Yeah.
a bull rush.
By the way, is this the first half, Jeff?
Yes.
This was,
I thought so. Second quarter, wasn't
yeah, second
Yeah.
quarter.
it? So,
Yes.
wow.
It was Cowboys' second possession.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That early?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that's the kind of thing, because we know you'll see it really well from this end zone angle, guys. This is the kind of thing, I was looking for, hoping to see, and you can see just there is some physical power there.
Yeah.
But the other thing about him is, and he was at the combine. So what I'm going to do, because I'm just curious now, I'm going to pull up my notes on him and get his measurements from the combine.
Honestly, I had almost thought he was watching tape of Brandon Graham with this kind of move because this is how Brandon Graham wins.
Yep.
And Jalyx Hunt was more known as a speed, athleticism
Well,
trait.
he's an
He
athlete.
just bullies him here.
But
Yeah.
you have to remember, he was 6'3" and
Right.
3/4 and 252. And by the way, he's got 34 and 3/8 inch arms. That's
Yeah.
a big, big deal.
And
Yeah.
he's rocked up, guys.
Yeah.
I saw him at training camp. A coach that we know, who I saw on my training camp tour. I mean, I've told the story before. He begged his GM to draft him in the third round. The Eagles beat him to it,
Right.
and because he met him, I guess, at the Senior Bowl, and he loved the kid. He kept in touch with him because he wants to be great. Like he's taken to playing the edge, which he never played in his life until he switched to that school. And you just love Greg, you've talked about this, about how GMs, I know you've told the story before, they love the measurables.
Oh,
He's got everything.
he's got everything. I mean, what I said was, to fit my transition, I said the bottom line with Hunt is that he is an elite athlete with outstanding size and length, and he possesses every trait you look for in an edge pass rusher. And while it will take some time for him to develop with more tools in his box, he has all you want in a higher level edge rusher in the NFL. His athletic traits profile might be as strong as any edge defender in this draft class, but he is a classic projection due to his level of competition and the things you don't see enough of on film. So, I mean, the guy he's an athletic, he's just a super athlete. That's why this play, Geoff, I really pointed it out when I was watching the tape, because this is what you need to see.
Right.
Nice.
Okay, we also talked about Jalen Carter, dominating games.
Really good
we
game.
see it
Really
enough.
good game.
And he did have a good game. Yeah, he had a -2 on Rico Dowdle on a 3rd and 2. That was very vital.
Yep.
At one point in the game. And then here we're going to see him. I believe he gets a sack on this possession where he just straight bullies through the line.
Yep. Let's
take a look at that.
Yep.
I got to see the end zone shot. Here we go. I got to see this. This is going to be good.
Got to see. That's what you want to see from him.
Watch the right guard here. And the center.
So he moved
both of them.
By the way, that's Zack Martin. So he
Yes.
moved two guys. He moved Zack Martin right with his initial shock, and then Cooper Beebe, the rookie from Kansas State, he just had no chance.
Yeah, remember when they said, well, gee, if you double team Jalen Carter, it opens up for everybody else to win one-on-ones. No, you could just beat a 2-on-1 yourself and get in there. No, it did help. I mean, you see Sweat edge the left tackle, who was the backup. And then that was
BJ.
sorry, Sweat edges the right tackle. Who edges the left tackle?
Is that 55?
Is that Hunt again?
Wait, is that 55's Graham?
That's Brandon Graham.
That's
That's Brandon Graham.
Yep.
So
and I made my
party
notes
at the
on
quarterback.
Carter. Carter, I made notes on, in this game because I thought he played really, really well. So yeah, he had dominant snaps in this game. I said Carter overall had a strong game in run defense, making another physical play on the first play of the third quarter. He two-gap BB, then displaced the block to tackle Dowdle for 1 yard. Then he also beat BB with physical strength on 3rd and goal from the 3-yard line late in the second quarter to tackle Dowdle for a 2-yard loss. I'm sure you guys remember these plays. But yeah, he had a really, really good game. And he's so capable of this. We talked about him, I think, in each of the last couple of weeks, guys. He's just capable of being this kind of player every single week.
Yep. Absolutely. Greg, I forgot one clip so I'm going to keep you a little extra longer because I want to be fair to Jalen Hurts because we sort of pointed out some off-structure plays that he made that way and they made it on structure, but he had a really nice play in this game that was on structure that I just wanted to show everybody. It was to A.J. Brown for 18 yards.
Oh, that was I thought his best play. Like obviously the back shoulder throw to Dotson was a great throw. This I thought was his absolute best play. And by the way, it speaks to what Adam spoke about with our Patreon group about Gainwell, because here he makes a great block on Overshown.
Right, because it looks like they're sending pressure. They've got a lot of guys at scrimmage. That was a 1, 2, 3.
Good job. And he finished it. Kenny, great block. Look, watch Gainwell finish this one.
Kenny stones the free rusher.
Let's walk through this, and I don't mind taking a little extra time here, Jack. This is really good. So one of the things that you've heard me talk about, and not just me, if people who listen to this don't know my background, not that I'm going to go into a whole sermon on my background, but I've been fortunate in my career to be taught by really smart coaches. So when
Mhm.
I talk about quarterback trades, I'm not making this stuff up. I've been doing this a long time, as Adam well knows, because I've known Adam, for a long, long time.
And Jaws, you learn from
Yeah,
Jaws.
yeah, he's one of them. But I mean, I learned
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Bill Walsh. I
yeah,
learned
yeah.
from a lot of people who've coached for a long
Wow,
time in the NFL.
nice.
One of the things that is always talked about with coaches is what's called pocket movement, the ability to just either slide right or left, step up, which people call climb, you know,
Mhm.
not just to run out of the pocket, okay? To actually work the pocket, navigate the pocket, find a more quiet place to deliver the football. That's really what you're
It,
trying
it,
to do. In
it,
fact, I'm going to read something. I just thought of this. It's funny how
okay.
this works. That a
All right.
coach said to me, and I thought it was, I can't remember so I'm going to read it because it's really incredibly well said. Let me find it. Oh, here, the coach called it functional intelligence. He said, can the quarterback function intelligently and athletically at game speed amidst the chaos and destruction that surround him so that he can use his necessary requisite skills? I thought that, and I thought I mean, that's the way coach, they live this 24/7. So that's what quarterbacking ultimately is. You're going to be involved in chaos. It's the NFL. So how do you handle all that? Just running around out of it is not, sometimes you make a great play doing that. But this play is a great example of Hurts playing at a really high level because again, here's the double mug look, Geoff, just what we spoke about earlier.
Yep, guys in the A gaps
Right. So
right
this
there.
time Overshown comes and Kendricks drops out.
Yeah,
So Overshown,
let me just quickly apologize because I didn't cut this very well, but there's AJ Brown finally that you can see at the top of the screen. I should have
top of
just
the screen. Yeah.
yeah, there
So
we go.
so the point is that he's going to get pressure up the middle. So instead of bailing out of the pocket, which we've seen him do at times and make great
Hmm.
plays, but that's you ideally don't want that to be your first reaction.
Right.
So what does he do here? He slides left and he maintains his downfield focus, okay? And
Yep.
I guarantee he
Yep.
knows that he's got Brown one-on-one against the
Hmm.
corner that they've clearly been wanted to pick on all game, and they did, and that's the rookie Kalen Carson. So
Right.
what he does is he slides to his left, eyes
Hmm.
downfield,
Hmm.
resets his throwing platform,
That's beautiful.
puts it right on
Yep.
his
Beautiful.
hands.
And
That's
great placement because he
yeah,
can Brown can catch this and do what
and
Brown
run
does
after
best.
catch.
Exactly.
That's
Run
this,
Greg,
after catch.
this is
that's
high
the
level. This is high
that,
level quarterbacking right
so
here.
so John DiFilippo told me this when I met him 10 years ago. He talked about feel it, don't see it. He must have
Hmm.
told me it 20 times because I don't want him to see the rush. I want him to feel it.
Right.
He knows, Greg, you just mentioned it. He knows about the coverage, but he also knows that he's got pressure coming from the right.
Now, question. He knows.
Oh, you
He
can
sees
feel
the
this guy
blitz.
coming around the
Yeah.
edge, no
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
doubt.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is
Does a great job of hanging. He doesn't flinch. That was great.
George used to say the same thing all the time, Adam. As a quarterback, you can never see the pressure. You have to feel the pressure.
Right. And just to get another, and again, this is why we can't tell because if he didn't make this throw, I think people would have said sun. The sun
Sunlight.
is
Look at it.
definitely
Jeez.
there and in his face, but he makes a beautiful read and throw on this. And that's Donovan Wilson, right? The safety coming
And go
around the
back
edge.
just a little. Watch when he slides, and then
Uh-huh.
freeze it before he throws it. Just here, let him
All right.
slide, and then keep going, keep going, keep going. Stop. This is the key piece right here. Look at his body. Look at the ball position. Look how he reset his throwing platform. He's
Yep.
ready to throw a football. He's not going to throw it off balance, falling
Hmm.
away. He's in perfect position. This is the kind of stuff you drill. You go to training camp, you see quarterbacks work on this kind of stuff all the time when it's
Hmm.
quarterback drills. Movement, resetting your throwing platform. Now he does fall away a little because he
A little
does
bit.
feel that pressure, and he
Yes.
Yep.
certainly doesn't.
He's
But I
there.
mean, it's at least he was set to start with, so he had the balance necessary to make this throw.
Right. We talk about him resetting his feet all the time. He's a very good thrower of the football when he resets his feet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this is high level quarterbacking. To me, that was his best quarterback play. He's made some great throws. Obviously, the 44-yard vertical, in the second half to Brown was, he
Hmm.
placed that, and he's great at that. But those are the kinds of plays that you don't see it. Quite being honest, you don't see enough of. That's what he needs to do more of.
All right. Great stuff. Eagles have a huge game Thursday night against Washington. It should be fantastic. And when we come back with this show next week, we'll have a lot of good tape to talk about. And of course, we'll have Inside the Birds pregame show that'll be out Thursday morning to preview Eagles versus Washington with first place on the line in the NFC East. So for Greg Cosell and Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell.